And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of The Left Wing. John and I are joined today by Bree and James. Bree, how are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you doing, TJ?
Doing all right, James.
I'm glad to be here. Doing all right.
Fantastic. John?
I'm doing terrible. Just terrible day. It's awful. It's raining outside. God, terrible.
That's all right. Enjoy the rain while we still have it, while we still have weather. Who knows how long that's going to be around. But all right. So we're going to start off today's show. Everyone's favorite topic. America's sweetheart, Candace Owens, is no longer employed by the Daily Wire. We don't know the specifics on why she's no longer employed. We don't know if she was fired or if she quit. They haven't released that information. I have my theories on which one it actually is. I'm curious to know what you guys' opinions of it are. But it almost certainly boils down to her very blatant and obvious anti-Semitism that she's been peddling the last, 2 or 3 years. And it is funny it's darkly humorous, I'll put it that way, that Candace Owens' anti-Semitism started a long time ago. The first time I can think of her saying something that was just, indefensibly anti-Semitic is when she was talking about how Hitler wasn't such a bad guy, basically, that nationalism is actually a pretty good thing. Like if you talk about Adolf Hitler, for example, all he was trying to do was make Germany great. If he'd have just stayed, within the bounds of the fear
it was like Hitler's problem was that he was a globalist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, is that his problem?
Yeah, that's it. If he'd have just stayed within the borders of the fatherland, everything would have been cool. And then she kept moving on, saying more shit about defending Kanye West and everything. But lately, she's spoken out against Israel and their actions against Palestine. But we want to make it very clear. This is not because she loves Palestinians. It's because she hates Jewish people. And so any criticisms we have would be against the state of Israel and the actions of the government. Hers are against Jewish people. And that seemed to be where the line was drawn. Like criticizing Israel seemed to be where the Daily Wire kind of pulled the rug out from her. That's my opinion. But Bree, we'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on the unfortunate departure of Miss Owens from the Daily Wire?
Is it unfortunate, though?
It depends on what the perspective is.
True.
That's my first view right there. I think she was definitely fired. That's my theory. Yeah. I mean, Ben Shapiro is an Orthodox Jew. So he's co-founder of Daily Wire. She's sitting there making anti-Semitic comments. It's not really going to sit well with him. I do find it funny just because of the whole freedom of speech thing that they love to tout. It's like freedom of speech sometimes, but it depends what it is. But if we get in trouble from somebody on the left, then we're going to yell freedom of speech and be really upset. But it's okay when we do it to ourselves or we do it to other people. I think
freedom
that
of speech only for the right.
Exactly. Freedom of speech only for me, not for thee. Yep. She's made so many comments, right? Like it's not a new thing. She did the whole White Lives Matter thing too with, Kanye, and we know how far Kanye's gone off the handle. So it wasn't too surprising to me. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them this long.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part that makes me think it wasn't a firing, because they could, Ben Shapiro could have fired her for anti-Semitic remarks many, many, many times. And it's not like there was some big thing that she said recently that was particularly egregious. It seems like this is more so just the two parties hated each other so much that she was just like, you know what, screw it, I'm out of here. I would put my money on her leaving, but Ben Shapiro making the workplace so hostile that didn't really give her a choice. That's what I would bet my money on. But James, what do you think?
I'm very much on the fired train.
Okay.
I think that throughout the past couple of years, Ben Shapiro and her have exchanged real good words with and about each other. And I think that this is purely one of those moments where someone's views are no longer in the interest of the person in power. I think that her anti-Semitism, because Daily Wire is such like a big outlet for the extreme right and for let's just say the far right in general, and the idea that now there's going to be cross the aisle, left and right people that are going to be effectively pro-Palestine, whether you're pro-Palestine or anti-Israel, because her anti-Semitism to the far right or the conservative right is translating into anti-Israeli rhetoric. And I think that Ben Shapiro cannot abide that. He can abide Hitler comments. He can abide all the other shit. But the moment that, I think it's very, very important, just the past 5 months that led up to it, ever since October 7th, her rhetoric ramped up. It's very much not in alignment with the power center's interest, and I think she had to go.
I will say, James, I say this on the show a lot, that I hate Ben Shapiro, but he's one of the few people on the right that I respect from a business standpoint. Like, I think that he has done a wonderful job building up what the Daily Wire is, and I wish we had something like that on the left. And I will say that I've always said Ben Shapiro, he follows whatever, he'll say whatever it is to grow the Daily Wire, to give himself more power, to make his position within the Republican media sphere better. And the one time where he will be a total ideologue is when it comes to Israel. And it actually shocked me that she got this far. We're months into this now. I thought, like, if you were to ask me that, I thought that she would be fired like October 8th. And she has not. She hung around for this long. And I really think that's because of just there was a conservative effort to not be cancel culture, and they just cornered themselves into this position where, oh, well, we can't fire her for saying things we don't like, but we really want to fire her for saying things we don't like. And I think that's the only reason it's gone this long, because Candace Owens has just like been stubborn and not quit. Like that's why I think it was like she quit, because again, they could have fired her anytime. Why now?
Well, if it wasn't like an immediate firing, I'm sure, I would imagine, because I would imagine over the past few months, there's been lots of talks about her reining it in, needing to change her tone. And the thing is, I think we all can agree that Candace Owens doesn't believe anything that she's saying. Like, she's flip-flopped across the political aisle so many times that it's all what is convenient for her in her career interests and her moneyed interests, whatever. So I do wonder, like, what aspect of it, if it was like ego, like, oh, I won't do this because of like ego, like I've grown this thing that like I can't shift it. If she would have preferred to, but knows that she backed herself into a corner, being this particular type of ideologue, and that she couldn't switch course with any kind of ease, and not be seen as like false and disingenuous to her viewership. I don't know.
I don't know about that, James. I'm thinking because
well, no, she can be false and disingenuous, except for on a couple key issues. And this is one of them.
You're correct. Candace Owens has, bounced around the ideological spectrum quite often. Most famously, like, she knows that racism against Black people is real. She filed a lawsuit, when she was in school and everything. I do think she actually is anti-Semitic, though. Like, I do. I think she believes that with every fiber of her being, because there was no one asking her to do that. Like, there's a lot of people asking her to be anti-Black, to be anti-women, to be anti-trans. There's a huge market for that. There is a market for the staunch anti-Semitism like that, but it's not nearly large enough for her to risk her career on that. But I do agree that she was fired, because where is she going to go? Like, she wouldn't leave that paycheck if she didn't have anything lined up, and she does not have anything lined up. It's not like the day she was fired, she announced, and now I'm working with this outlet, or I'm starting, CandaceOwens.com, and there's nothing really going with that. So I don't know. And it's like the anti-Semitism, because we mentioned it plenty times before that, the like old school anti-Semitism is what she's by stuff that you haven't seen in a long time in the public discourse. Like, whenever she started, talking crazy, defending Kanye and everything, and James mentioned the spat she was having with Ben Shapiro on Twitter. John and I were talking about it yesterday, how she said two quotes in there that jumped out at me, where the first thing she said was, "You cannot serve God and money," which you can't. It was like, okay, that was definitely aimed at Ben Shapiro, and that's kind of an anti-Semitic trope. It was a quote from the Bible, so you're like, okay, maybe you can let that slide. And the very next quote, like towards Ben Shapiro, she wrote, in all caps, Christ is king. Like, okay, all right, we see what's going on here. Like, we know what's up. So I think she actually is anti-Semitic. Like, she burns so many calories trying to get into this that I have a hard time buying that. It's kind of a casual, thought process for her. What do you think, Bree?
I mean, I'm with you. I think she's anti-Semitic. I think a lot of her other points are convenient.
Yeah.
As James said, they're convenient to who's watching her, who's paying attention. But I do think she's anti-Semitic. It makes you wonder what conversations her and Kanye have in private.
Could you imagine?
Because they're buddy, right? Like, it really makes
Just
you
being a
wonder.
fly on the wall.
Oh my
Yeah.
God!
Like, you
This
see
is
what
like,
they post publicly. So what do they say in private?
yeah,
It's
God.
genuinely concerning.
There is this weird. I'm gonna get canceled or something for saying what I'm about to say. So there's Kanye, there's Candace, and then there's like remarks from other notable like Black media personalities and celebrities. Like I remember in Jay-Z's The Story of OJ song.
The Story of OJ. I talk about this all the time.
He makes a comment. And so I'm trying to figure out what is this correlation or what is this component that is it just like the sort of like correlation isn't causation, but they like see a lot of like Jewish people in certain parts of like the media like apparatus, and then I'll just say this. I was just in this exercise for like 10 weeks with all these cops, and I was like talking to them about the realities of American policing. But so much of the statistical evidence that I would provide, I was like known as the stats guy, just flew in the face of their immediate experience. And that there was no amount of data or research that I could give these people to make them stop believing what they know to be real through their own personal experience. So I gotta wonder, is there some aspect of personal experience which we could all pull apart, with just like sort of like a Marxist analysis or something about like the relationships here, that they are not getting because they have like some relationship, some personal experience with it. Like, what is it?
I have no idea. I really don't. Anti-Semitism has always been very strange to me. It's been very, very odd, although it's got a long history in Western culture. But it's one of those baffling things to me that I read about medieval history and how, a lot of people like in Western Europe were suspicious of Jewish people. They had their own communities, their own enclaves, and Jewish people got involved in banking because they weren't subject to Christian usury laws. And that made a lot of people resent the Jewish population. Okay.
Well, they were forced to do that. They were forced to.
Yeah. It's like I can track how people, developed these feelings. Today, I have no fucking clue. I have no idea. Not that it was justified back then. No, don't clip me on that. But it's like, today, for the life of me, I can't grasp why people still hold on to this animosity. I really don't get it.
I also don't get it from. Sorry, go ahead, Bray.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you still hear those comments about blood libels. They're gonna they're gonna drink the blood of our children, our Christian children. It's like that's
That was one of her
hundreds of
recent
years
comments.
old. Yes, and it's
I was about
hundreds
to
of
say,
years old.
was that Owens? I can't remember who said that. Was it? Okay, yeah.
He liked a tweet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's what it was.
It's weird like even in Europe, I would maybe get it because I feel like the racists get hard for anti-Semitism over there way more than they do here. And it's like here, I feel like the demand isn't there for
It's not there.
like anti-Semitism. Like you have, if you're anti-Semitic in the American media landscape, you gotta be anti-Semitic to your core. That's not a front you're putting on. Like you have to believe that shit. But to answer James's question, I feel like it's an example of the mouse comic and how the famous quote from that where it was like, suffering doesn't make people good, it just makes people suffer. And it's like, I feel like that when you are part of an oppressed minority group and you are suffering because of it, you're looking for reasons why. And there's a lot of valid reasons why, but it's easier to get into the funnel and slide down the rabbit hole when you are looking for reasons why the system seems to be rigged against you. Oh, it's these people over there. Blame them. It's the same reason that, white rural people who are stuck in poverty are blaming immigrants for the Brooklyn, the bridge in Baltimore falling. Like, it's like, it doesn't have to make sense. They're just looking for someone to blame. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons why you particularly tend to see this a lot with Black alt-right people should go in, because they kind of lose a group to blame and have to replace it with something else. And an easy one is sitting right there that a lot of people are going to give them clicks for.
Well, and there's people on their side that agree. So
Yeah.
it's easy. It's easy to jump on that train.
Yeah,
Reminds me of
I will
that.
add. That's an excellent point, John, because when you talk to people like Hoteps or like hard right conservatives, they sound exactly like the alt-right. There's very little daylight between the two. And I remember I saw some posts a while ago where people were talking about how alt-right folks are, they're against interracial dating and marriage, and they have all these hard lines that they want to separate the races by, and people are mocking white supremacists for this. It's like, oh, well, how about black supremacists? Like, bro, that's what they say too. Like they say the exact same shit. It's a Venn diagram that covers the exact same group. And so I guess in that aspect, it does kind of make sense that they lump in the anti-Semitism, because that's what the white alt-right people do as well.
Maybe there also is, I guess Jay-Z's the outlier here. Like Kanye West has like a lot of mental issues. Jay-Z, just seeing like that little comment peppered, it's always just like been in the back of my brain.
For the audience members who are not aware of this comment, what was the lyric? Because I actually I know what you're talking about, but
it's from a song, "The Story of OJ" by Jay-Z, and the whole point, if you don't mind, James, the whole point of the story of OJ is Jay-Z is giving a lesson to us normie black people on how to be rich. That's basically the lesson of it. And it's funny to me for a lot of reasons. Like, because the first example he gives, I think, is how he bought this apartment complex for $3 million.
Should have bought it, and then it got a bunch.
Okay,
yeah, he should have bought it
for a few $1 million, and now it's worth like 5 times as much more, like $15-20 million. And then he bought like this expensive painting or something, and for millions of dollars, it ended up becoming worth more. And then he makes this comment,
and he says, "Why do you think Jewish people all own all the property in America?" So he says that line.
Yeah,
weird. That's a weird line,
right?
Yeah,
Why does that need to be included?
And just randomly thrown in there?
It's so bizarre. The entire song is so weird, because this is Jay-Z. This is the whole point of the song. It's like, hey, I'm Jay-Z, your friendly neighborhood billionaire. I'm going to tell you black people how to be just like me, another black billionaire. So here's the first step: be Jewish. Okay, you're not Jewish. Okay, all right. Step 2, I need you to be a world famous, talented music artist and producer. All right, that's your next step. Step 3, marry an equally famous, world talented artist, and then combine your wealth. After that, buy property, real estate, and invest in art. And there you go. Those are all the steps. That's just like, the song doesn't make any sense at all, even if you take it seriously. But yeah, that line about why do you think Jewish people own all the property in America, this is how they did it, is fucked up, man. Like I didn't get that at all.
No. Oh yeah, he says this is how they did it. Credit. So it's also talking about like Jewish history and banking. And so I feel like there's got to be some historical component in the black community about like really understanding a relationship about wealth and power, especially if you're in New York, seeing centers of wealth in various Hasidic communities over here. And, obviously there's like other components. And I feel like in the same way that you were talking about, like effectively in capitalism, there's no center. So you have to like pick one thing, very like conspiratorial, one thing, the Illuminati, if you will, or something. And I feel like that's got to be like the starting point that gets people into this rabbit hole of radical anti-Semitism, like the Candace Owens type or the mentally unwell Kanye type.
Well, and there's the Christianity part. Like black people are the most Christian group in the United States. And this isn't to disparage people who practice Christianity, but a lot of anti-Semitism there, And so, I mean, John and I talk about all the time how the Catholic Church, for example, didn't what was it? They didn't overrule their stance on Jewish people being collectively responsible for the death of Christ until 1964. I mean, for a long time, that was the official stance of the Catholic Church until, like my parents were born. So yeah, wild shit going on there.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, good. That was a good place to cut it before it got really weird. But I was listen.
Yeah, sorry for the whole.
No,
the
that was a very
it just made
interesting
me
and
think
good
of that,
question.
and I was like, I can't.
It is a real thing.
It is. And what I was thinking of, so I told a story a while ago about how if you ever want to see the biggest hotbed of conspiracy theories you can ever find, it's not Alex Jones' show. It's any black barbershop you go into. Like, you go into a black barbershop, you will be inundated with the wildest shit you have ever heard. And my barber was gone for a while, and I went to this random black barbershop, and I sat down, and there was this guy I used to debate there all the time before I went to a different barbershop. I got tired of this shit. And there's like, hey, you're the guy that used to be, you're in the debate that one dude. So yeah, I did. But the guy said a bunch of like blatantly misogynistic shit, and he was insane, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I said, I think he alluded to the fact that he believed the earth was flat. And then the barber's like, oh, I think the earth is flat. I was like, what? And then I was like, are you kidding me? And then I went through this whole discussion about how we know the earth isn't flat. We've known this for like 3,000 years now. There's different ways you can test it yourself to make sure the earth is flat and not round. About, gravity is the reason that the earth is a sphere. Everything is drawn toward the center of the earth at 9.8 meters per second square. I mean, just really basic science shit. And he's like, oh, okay. And he got kind of upset, and I kind of offended him because I treated him like an idiot, And then he came back from his break, and I said, hey, I'm sorry. I kind of, I was kind of rude and everything. I didn't mean to be. And another barber steps like, hey, I think the earth is flat too. 2 in one building. 2 flat earthers. I spent the next 40 minutes going over like 8th grade science with these folks. And I don't know, it's yeah, it is wild. So that's where I blame it on. Jay-Z, Kanye, they went to too many government conspiracy theories, black barbershops trying to break down our community. And that's what I blame it on.
That's funny. That's funny. That's the whole problem is the black barbershops.
That's where you gotta get at the source.
Tell Candace Owens that next time. Tell her to blame that. Yeah. Blame the barbershops. Don't blame the
exactly.
Jesus Christ. Man, what did I have written down here? What about Ben Shapiro? This didn't really relate specifically to the episode, but something John said about how Ben Shapiro is one of the few right-wingers that he respects, at least for, his work ethic and his skill of getting, this media apparatus off the ground. And we talked before how we want it'd be great to have a left-wing Daily Wire, but how we really can't because we're never going to get funding by billionaires to talk about workers seizing the means of production. Not going to happen. So, but with Ben Shapiro, one thing I do is Ben Shapiro, I think he is actually intelligent, which I don't think he's as smart as he pretends to be or people think he is, but I can't tell you that Steven Crowder is intelligent or Dave Rubin is intelligent. Most right wingers I see doing this shit are, pretty empty vessels. But Ben Shapiro does seem to have a brain about him, and you can tell he notices when things are actually hurting the party. Like, he does bring up the fact that the election denying stuff is hurting the Republican Party. Like, it actually is. And he was never a big fan of Trump. He's kind of like a reluctant Trump guy. He's like, oh, I'll defend Trump. But he talks about how Trump is hurting the party too in a lot of ways. So Shapiro is just a lot smarter than other Republicans, which makes him a lot worse because most Republicans are just idiots. Like, they don't know anything about James. You were talking about how you were talking with all the cops and everything and how they were unable to square reality with their lived experience, as if that's the question was like, I don't know, that's because they're cops. It's probably because they're probably right wingers, and that's what right wingers do. They're incapable of understanding data. But Ben Shapiro is, and so that just means he's evil. That just means he's a terrible human being. He's actually just a malevolent spirit walking the face of the earth, and it's a lot worse if you ask me.
And he's in love with his sister.
Whoa!
Say what?
I haven't heard about
that
this.
one.
What about his sister?
Is this another conspiracy?
What did he say?
I don't know how much of a conspiracy it is.
He said Shapiro's in love with his sister.
I'm gonna stop with that one. You guys can take that up with TikTok.
There's a meme going around about Ben Shapiro talking about how his sister is. I've seen that meme. Yes. Yeah. He didn't actually do it, I don't believe, but there are some funny memes about it going on. But it's pretty good shit. All right. John, what do you think next? Should we go the boat or Ronald McDaniel?
Let's go. Well, what did we want to end with?
Oh yeah, let's go. Yes, we should probably end with Ronna McDaniel. I like that.
That's also what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Let's go, since we're on the topic sort of Israel anyway.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. So I think, and you guys, I want to hear your take on this, because I think that the dam is really about to burst when it comes to the conflict with Israel and Palestine and Hamas and Benjamin Netanyahu and the United States of America and Joe Biden. Like, all of these things I think are coming to a head. I think this might be over in a month, because we just saw something I never thought what I would ever see happen in my lifetime. We just saw the United States of America choose not to veto a resolution that was in any way condemning the state of Israel. We had another, I think this was the third or fourth, I forget which one it was, but the third or fourth UN ceasefire resolution. We had already vetoed the previous ones, and this one we chose to abstain. And it really pissed off Benjamin Netanyahu. He went and canceled a delegation to the White House, which he has since reversed and is sending them. It's been a weird thing. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there, but the tension between the White House and Netanyahu is about to break, and something's got to give, because the current state of affairs, I don't think, can continue for too much longer if the United States of America is doing something as serious as not serious. They should have done this the whole time, but it is a massive change in policy that, again, I never thought I would see. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think this is a sign of significant movement behind closed doors that we aren't privy to, or do you think this is more just posturing and trying to extend this out as long as possible? And I guess I will throw to Bree and not just let you guys fight over it.
Thanks. I'm not too sure yet. I've been going kind of back and forth on that, on what are we going to see next here. I think it's good that they finally did something, something. Abstaining is still whatever. Like, it would have been nice if they just voted on it, instead of abstaining. But I'll take what I can get, I guess, as far as how they're going to handle that situation goes. That being said, as soon as it happened, they were asking, is this binding? Is this binding to Israel? And the U.S. right away said it's non-binding.
No.
So it's like they immediately kind of took their side again, but they're trying to like straddle this middle line where they don't give too much away, where they don't, get in trouble from us to call them out, because we've been calling him out. Everybody has been. They've been calling out President Biden and how he's been dealing with all of this. And this is the first time that they've done anything that's gone against Israel in any way. And you're right. He is pissed. Netanyahu's pissed. I'm so bad at saying his name.
Yeah.
Ignore that. There we go.
There we go. Perfect.
That guy. Nice shirt. But China's UN ambassador, they blatantly came out and said, no, this is binding. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not sure. I do think that, like TJ said, it's coming to a head. Like, something is going to burst. The dam's going to burst. People are getting angry. And what is it? 35,000 dead in Gaza now. Like, it's just out of control. They should have ceased fire a long time ago. And to blatantly say that they're not going to cease fire, despite the resolution, goes against the UN. They should be held accountable.
What do you think, James?
I guess like a lot of things. And I've been trying to figure this out since the beginning when we first started talking about ceasefires. Is like, what does enforcing a ceasefire really look like? And so I think that for the US to abstain, I think that there's a lot of like geopolitical things that they are trying to do, because Israel is a pariah state now. We've already been losing like a lot of our hegemonic position over the past few years with like BRICS and things like that. And like, PPP, China is basically better. They've already surpassed us in purchasing power parity, as like an economy goes.
I'm
so
glad
like
you said that, because I thought you meant, like, I first heard payroll protection plan and I was like, wait, what the fuck is he talking about?
No,
the PPP loans, how are they really?
yeah. Oh yeah. And they defaulted on all of them. Yeah. And so I think that the US, there's this thinker, Origi, and he talks about hegemony comes from like moral dominance. Like you are the moral power in the world. And I think post World War, we were able to do that. We were able to like sustain that image, and vocally supporting a genocide really is like the last like little like column that's holding up any kind of hegemony that we might still hold. So I think that we kind of had to do it. And I think that it's the enforcing part of this, it is binding. Like however they say, like I think them saying like it's not binding means like we might not abide by it. Like we might keep sending them weapons, keep sending them aid. Like what the fuck? That part is the part that I don't understand.
I was reading an article about it, and they were talking about the language.
Yeah.
That it says demand, and the U.S. is saying, "Oh, well, that's not the same word."
Yeah,
it's still a demand.
And there's one other part that felt important, which was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Things are happening very fast now. Where I think it was Malaysia came out and they're like, because it was after like the fourth veto by the US. And they're like, yo, this whole fucking 6 countries getting to decide like everything for everyone's bullshit. Let's take away this power. So like there's also the idea of like holding together a global power block in general. Like who knows?
Yeah, listen, I didn't hear about that, but I'm glad to hear, because I mean, listen, I'm not the first person thinking this. I remember learning about this like in middle school, that the UN has half a dozen countries that can veto anything. That doesn't make any sense. That kind of takes away from the title United Nations. It sounds like, these 5 nations and their, junior partners. That's what it kind of sounds like if you guys actually get to run everything. So I'm glad to hear that this has come up from somewhere at least. And as far as the moral hegemony thing, I hadn't heard that argument or that's a sentence yet, James, but that is kind of funny to think about, that the United States, fresh off being the only country in human history to incinerate entire towns with 2 nuclear bombs, say, yeah, we're the moral leader of the planet Earth right now. Like all this goes through us. We can definitely decide what's right and wrong for everybody else. There's no better judge than good old Uncle Sam. And
that's about storytelling. We were able to craft a story that was the dominant story across the world, and now us are crafting a new narrative that they can't control, and it is tearing down whatever thin veneer of morality there ever was.
Hence banning TikTok.
Yeah, it's essentially a simulacrum for just life in general, like in the modern world, that it's about tearing apart these ancient myths that we all grew up learning and bought into. And now that we're adults, we're figuring like, okay, how did people just buy into this shit for decades and decades on end without questioning it? Like it's like the thing, like we all knew adults were incompetent, but we didn't know the situation was this dire until we became adults and how bad it actually was. And I hadn't heard Bree, you mentioned something about that. I think it was you talked about that. Well, this says like you must do this or it's enforced or something. And like, well, that's not what the language really means. And that sounds absurd, but now that I think about it, if you're writing a UN resolution, you have to do it in every language. And languages are complex. And some words we don't have a word for, different, like Schadenfreude. Like we don't have a word in English for Schadenfreude. Like we actually have to use the German word. So I doubt that's what's going on here, but I can easily foresee that being an actual issue. And all right, listen. I don't think much of the United States, as much as people would imagine. But I got to tell you, abstaining, bitch move, coward shit right there. I think of what you love in the United States, but I didn't think them to be weak like that. If you're going to make a vote either in the positive or the negative. Like if I don't understand what you have to gain, but say, oh, I'm going to sit this one out, because no one's happy with that. Nobody is happy with that. I guess we're moderately happy because it's better than a veto. But that kind of just proves that what John was saying, that the administration is actually really afraid of what's going on right now because it's hurting their image. So they're going to try to take the coward's move and straddle the fence, when that there is no fence straddling here. You can't be half a gangster on this. You have to go in or out on everything that's going on here. And lastly, second to last, the last is going to be pretty good, trust me. But the second to last thing is about the ceasefire. The ceasefire is for Ramadan, if I remember correctly, right? It's not a total ceasefire in this resolution. This is just for the holy month of Ramadan. I remember checking that before I got here. Am I correct on that?
I did not actually read that
I
part.
think-
TJ.
I think
You
you're
could
correct.
be right.
Okay. Well, of course, no checks on that.
So here's the thing. I knew that the ceasefire was meaningless because the U.S. wasn't putting their teeth behind it. So I didn't even read the details because it didn't matter. You know, like it is a significant change in policy, but unless the U.S. is enforcing it, there's like, what is the UN going to do? And that's the crux of the whole, like, that what you're talking about, James, is like exactly the problem here. Is that, like, if this becomes an international legal conflict, there's so much more danger to the United States than simply, like, Biden has an easy out. Like, it's an easy out of just like, hey, yeah, we tried to like work it from the inside, but Netanyahu's obviously a crazy person. He's a genocidal dictator, and he's got to go. And that's, Biden has to snap his fingers and do that. But the longer he plays this game in the middle, it's just like, it can blow up the whole thing, because now we have Malaysia saying the thing that everyone has been not saying, which is, yeah, no rational human being would ever agree to this separate, like this structure of powers as being the right thing to do. It only exists because those in power have made it that way. And
exactly.
we don't talk about it. That is the only two reasons that this continues the way it has been for the last 6 years.
And it's going there because yesterday when the resolution passed or whatever, what did Israel do last night? They blew Rafah to shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, either Biden's got to have balls. I mean, he doesn't. I don't even like talking about, like, I'm a policy wonk. Fuck Biden. But either, like, we're going to have to be very firm in the consequences of them continuing this, which we're not. Like, abstaining, the UN, we can now say that, like, we allowed a thing to pass, whatever. But they're continuing to bomb.
Mm-hmm.
They're not abiding by this, and they've said it vocally that they're not going to abide by this.
Yeah.
So is it, if we don't do it, we've abstained, are we going to, like, Switzerland during the World Wars kind of a situation while, like, Europe tries to amass?
No, we'll be involved.
Yeah, like,
what'd you say, Bree?
I said we can wish we could abstain, but we'll always be involved because they can't stay out of it.
Because if we stay out of it, like, that's the worst case scenario for U.S. hegemony, is to just throw our hands up and be isolationists. Like, we need to be controlling whatever the outcome is, or else we run the risk of China coming in and winning that moral favor and stopping the genocide. Like, that would be the worst case scenario, I feel like.
Please, she.
So I pulled up the article I was reading earlier, TJ, just to give you the exact language. So the resolution uses the word demands. It demands a ceasefire. It demands the release of the hostages. However, the word that they're supposed to use is decides. Demands sounds more enforceful than decides.
It's true. It's true.
You're demanding something. So that's the language that the U.S. is saying makes it non-binding to Israel.
Interesting. I didn't know that, but I did look up too more because I was curious myself that the Security Council demands an immediate ceasefire in Gaza for the holy month of Ramadan. 14 members voting in favor. United States abstained 3 days ago. So yeah, this is it's a temporary ceasefire anyway, which we were mocking that when Harris was calling for that 2 weeks back. And my whole opinion on this is that if there's a temporary ceasefire going on, that means you're not taking this seriously. You're not. I'm sorry. Like, if this is an actual war that I'm worried about my survival and it's a legitimate threat, I'm not going to take time off. I'm sorry. I'm not. It's not. And I never bought into that. It's kind of like during World War I. You guys know about, like, the Christmas ceasefire they had during World War I, when, like, the British and the Germans started playing soccer with each other and everything. It's nonsense. But you know about that, Bree?
Then they were like, back in the trenches, boys.
It's a wild
Sounds
story.
insane.
Yeah, it was right in the middle of the trench warfare, and it was Christmas Eve, I think, the evening on Christmas Eve. Good job, TJ. But a German soldier was singing Silent Night in German, and as German people singing, and a British soldier overheard him, and he recognized the song and started singing it in English back to him. And then the German soldier wandered out into no man's land and was kind of waving, whatever. And then the British soldier came out too, and they exchanged, like, cigarettes and candy and stuff. And then other soldiers started flooding no man's land, and they were playing cards and playing soccer and everything. And they did this the entire evening, and until the commanders found out about it and called around and everything and got everyone back into the trenches, and they started blowing each other's heads off the next day. It just kind of speaks to the absurdity of war, but specifically World War I, which is one of the more absurd wars that's ever existed, and the loss of millions and millions of lives. But I wanted to end on this addressing James and his apparent mission to get the show canceled by not only the topic you brought up last segment, but holding up the shirt with this one. One for every segment. I can't wait to see what the other two are. Hats off to this guy.
They're ready.
One last thing I wanted to end on, TJ, because my favorite part of this entire thing was the following quote from, and of course there it goes. So this is from Kirby, right? And John Kirby says the U.S. was perplexed by Netanyahu's response, noting that the resolution was non-binding, and arguing that in addition to being consistent in U.S. policy, that the U.S. gets to decide what our policy is. They're saying that it does not have key language that we think is essential, but it does fairly reflect our view that a ceasefire and the release of hostages come together, and our vote does not, I repeat, does not represent a shift in our policy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It does not represent a shift in your policy. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. It's literally a different vote. Like it's the most, and Biden has gaslit us a lot. And I rarely say this, but I agree with Netanyahu here. That was fucked up. Like
I'm clipping you there. I'm clipping that.
Yeah, right there. I agree with Netanyahu.
John Cooper agrees with Netanyahu.
John Kirby's a dick.
That was good stuff. Bree, I was afraid that they had got to you. I thought that James's plan to picking us off one by one.
They mixed up our addresses.
No.
His next shirt is just Bree.
That would be hilarious.
It's got little caricatures of me, Bree, and John. Bree's got an X through already.
Get out of here.
Bree Savage didn't commit suicide.
Just more headphone issues. It's fine. Apparently, if I leave and come back, the issue just fixes itself. So
that's good stuff. That is good stuff. Yeah, it's so weird with the whole. We've been talking for months now, as I'm sure everyone has. Is like, even if like with James mentioned that you're not like a huge policy wonk and you don't give a shit about how the Biden campaign goes. Just from a self-preservation standpoint, you think the Biden campaign would have handled this a lot better. It's just they've had plenty of time to do this, and they aren't idiots. They know what's going on. They see the fact that every time Biden or Harris go to give a speech, they have people chanting ceasefire now, and then all their folks chanting what do they say? They say four, but what do they say? I can't remember, but it's something with the word genocide in it. And then they respond with 4 more years. And it's like, that's a bad look. It just sounds awful. So for the life of me, I'm amazed it's taken them this long. Even if like you don't even look at the moral aspect of it, but just looking at the political aspect of it, it's a horrible miscalculation.
I think they've been planning to lose this election the whole time.
So they're like, I just throw in the towel. Yeah, I'm not gonna lose anyway.
If I was trying to lose this election, this is how I would do it.
I couldn't do it better.
Yeah, it might be the most unlosable election, and they're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna support a genocide.
It is wild. It is pretty wild. I still think that Trump. I don't see Trump winning. I just can't. There's a lot of reasons they'll go over too in the Ron McDaniel section. I can't wait to get to that one. But man, Biden is giving it the old college try. Like he really is doing his dead level best to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It is bad times, folks.
All right.
I mean, look at how they handled the 2016 election, the DNC. Like they don't make great choices.
They haven't learned either. They haven't learned in 8 years.
They will not learn. I mean, clearly, we've tried.
The 2016 election was an embarrassment of like colossal, like a cartoonishly bad embarrassment for the Democrats. And this happens a lot too, because whenever you talk to anyone on the right, and they say, hey, aren't you mad? Well, we say, listen, the election wasn't rigged. I mean, say what you want about the candidates or whatever, but there wasn't this, widespread machine creating millions of fake ballots for Biden. It's nonsense. And they love to respond with, oh, well, you call yourself a leftist. Don't you say that the DNC rigged the primary against Bernie. Okay, when we say rigged, we're not saying they were churning out millions of fake ballots for Hillary Clinton. That's not what happened. She got the most ballots. Like we have an adult's understanding of the word rigged. What we're talking about here is, but they realized the more Bernie talked in front of the public, the higher his polls got. So they would schedule the debates like during football games and shit when people wouldn't watch it. They had, well, honestly, like the oddly undemocratic aspect of super delegates in the Democratic Party that the Republicans don't have, where it's a year before any votes are cast, but somehow Hillary Clinton has 500 super delegates because they can just pledge, way out in advance, and Bernie has 0. So whenever they reported the delegates, you always saw Hillary Clinton with a 80% lead, even though she had roughly the same amounts as Bernie, but the super. So yeah, that's what we talk about. We're talking about rigged. We're not talking about 2,000 mules or some dog shit that's rotting you guys' brain. But it's unfortunate that's the same word.
Dude, 2016 was the year I lost faith in this country.
Same.
And it was exactly that. Like seeing all of the nuanced ways in which like the direction of all these events is manipulated and controlled. And I was like, oh my God. And then I remember in 2020, I listened to Solidarity Forever while I went to go cast my primary ballot for Bernie. And that was the last time I was happy with politics.
The last time I was happy.
That was the last time I was happy. Point blank.
Now I'm just various levels of miserable or pissed off.
Yeah. Now I just wear this shirt.
Bernie's the only old white man that I want to be.
I mean, not anymore. Now he's garbage.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but I used to.
He'd still be better than Biden.
Yeah, those were good days when we thought we were such fucking simpletons. With Bernie's got a chance. Yeah, we'll get Bernie in there. They won't railroad him at the earliest convenience. Yeah, those were. It has been dark times since then because Bernie's not going to run again. And there doesn't seem to be a deep bench for people that we really are. Even if we find someone that we like again, I mean, maybe it was a good lesson to learn too, to not put your hope in a person. Like maybe that was which we should have known, but that everyone is like what James mentioned with the Sanders, that everyone will eventually let you down, and so not to find yourself a hero to rally around, but the community and the population is what we should, and values. And maybe it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's good we learned it when we did, I think.
I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this dumb idea, which is there's an issue on the left that I'm sure we all know, left unity. There is none. We're all mad at each other and we all hate each other, and none of us want to go into any of the existing groups. So we're like, we're going to make our own group. But we all agree on like a lot of policies, on almost every level of the left. And I was like, what if there's a thing, instead of like creating a new party or wanting Bernie, a singular person, some kind of thing like that we did like the left's version of Project 2025. You get like a series of policies that sort of like there was like that Medicare for all thing that happened like 4 or 5 years ago or whatever, and they had like people on the right, people on the left. This is not for the right. This is only for the left. But it's only for the left around a broad set of policies so that we can like have some sort of like unified approach to politics.
The problem, James, is that kind of exactly what TJ was saying, how there can't be a left-wing Daily Wire. There can't be a left-wing Project 2025 because our power is not consolidated. Like there's no like a couple special interests that can write this and then the rank and file just go through with it. Like there is no centralized authority, and so it's kind of hard to get a single project that we can all rally around.
And that has to be there. Like that right there is why it's hilarious that they think that we somehow stole the election. Like we have
oh my God, right? Yeah.
First of all, they say how dumb we are, right? But then they think that we're smart enough to do that. We're less organized than they are.
That's what I say, Brie, about Donald Trump. Like the reason that like I'm genuinely not that worried about Donald Trump, because this is the guy that scheduled his very important speech at Four Seasons Landscaping. Like as much as Project 2025 is terrifying, once you remember that Donald Trump is the one who has to execute it, it becomes a lot less scary. But Yeah, that's why. But James, I do think that Medicare.
Do you
for
not
All is a
think
great
that us
example.
as like content creators, that I think I've grown to know so many of you guys like in the past like year and a half or two, or since I started doing this, and those dialogues are open. All those people are really willing to rally around some message. Like I've had some version of this conversation with quite a few people. So like, you know, there's different kinds of capital. We're not going to have money capital ever. What about human and social capital that we do have access to, that we have really bootstraps for ourselves? Is that not a valid thing?
I think it helps, and it helps because it gives us reach. We can reach people, and that at the end of the day that's the hardest thing, is to get your word out. But then you have, apps like TikTok where they suppress you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, TJ.
I think the primary problem John and I talked about this yesterday, is that when it comes to people on the right, first I'll say, James, when you said that, can we do something like our own Project 2025? I thought you meant like, overthrowing democratic norms and installing us. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Let's do it our way. But,
Do it.
but I think the main problem with the left is something that John and I talked about yesterday, is that when it comes to right wingers, there is pretty much one type of person. You have a right wing conservative, usually white Christian. Like that's it. James was not interested in my message. He's like, AJ,
no, sorry, my cam just went down for a second.
F this guy.
Shut up, TJ. I don't care.
But so conservatives, it's really easy for them to consolidate around any of the four things that they care about, and then tack on a shitload of bigotry. But with us, it's a lot different, because just people, not even leftists, but people who are nominally on the left, is that you're going to have, the black community, the queer community, the white working class community. Well, a good chunk, not most of them, apparently, of the white working class community, feminists, Native Americans, Latino immigrants. Is people who have a lot of similar goals, but they also have goals that don't necessarily coincide. They don't converge. And it's very easy. We see it all the time where leftists, we don't have a lot of power, institutional power or actual power in the United States. And so what we hold really valuable, what we really hold dear, is esoteric knowledge. Like, we love being smarter than other people, and we take every possible opportunity we can to shit on other people and say, oh, okay, you haven't read this 19th century text on social. Okay. And so we do this shit all the time. And I mean, it's not just a joke. We really do. And that's why it's hard to get us to work together. And everyone has their own pet ideas. And so, like, Medicare was a good one, like, because that's one that we could kind of all rally around. And that one didn't work either. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot more difficult for us than it would be for anyone on the right. And the third issue that we're going to have is, and this applies necessarily to leftists, not necessarily people who are just like liberals and leftists, that there just aren't as many of us as we'd like to think. People who are like actually leftists, people like anywhere to the left of progressives. There are people who are, liberals or maybe even conservatives that would have a leftist view or two, but people who would actually, identify with enough of these qualities to get behind a movement is fairly small. I'm comparatively to the rest of the voting populace, and I sound like a doomer here, but I'm just saying that it's possible. Go ahead.
No, I understand the pragmatism and the cynicism. I think that I'm always dancing between the poles of hopelessness and cynicism.
Yeah.
There's there's not like a bright side on that. But when you look at specific policies, like they don't even need to be socialist. I'm not talking about like socialist policies here. I'm talking about like effectively, like, I made some dumb video a couple months ago. I was like, this is the bare minimum if any fucking politician wants me to vote for them. And it's like bare minimum policies, whether it's Medicare or like a single payer healthcare. I'm not using Medicare for all anymore. That was co-opted. Single payer healthcare, federal jobs guarantee. These all have more than half of the population supporting them. The Green New Deal or certain like sustainability efforts, those ones have broad-based support, but they do have human rights support or whatever the opposite of support is. And I'm like, that's, I guess, what I was trying to, or what I was imagining. Not so much like Claudia and Karina being like, we're going to seize the biggest 100 companies, which I want. I want them to win. That'd be fucking tight. It's not going to happen, but that's not what I'm even saying. I'm like, there's stuff where each of these policies has anywhere from like 53 to like 75% of the population supporting them, because we're all fucked by them the same way.
So,
but
James,
also to address one thing, I think that the right has just as many particularities as the left does, like our own little pet projects. Because I think you grouped them in with just like general, I forget what the bigotry, but all that bigotry is tied to some desired social formation that they want. But they're really good at sacrificing particularity for a single goal in that moment. And they're like, we'll go for that thing later. And I think that that's the one thing that the left isn't good at right now, is they're like, if I can't have it all right now, I don't want nothing, and I'm going to stop you from being able to do it. And yes, that is a big fucking issue.
So I think, James, and I don't want to have come off as a doomer, because that is the opposite. Like, I am someone who fights against doomerism. I just think that a coordinated plan such as Project 2025 is impossible on the left. However, I think what is possible, and I've talked about this before, there's two key factors that I think can give us a path to victory. One being demographic change. Once the boomers start dying, it's going to have a massive wealth shift downward to people who have already been radicalized. You're going to end up with a lot of millennials who have all of this pent up. They haven't moved right like previous generations have, because they haven't gotten the money. And by the time they get the money, they're going to be too far gone to ever go back. And so hopefully, knock on wood, fingers crossed. But like,
I made no promises, John. I made no promises. Like, once I get that money, bro, I did.
Like, once my dad has me get that house, I'm out of here.
Quick end.
I'm out.
but that is going to happen in the next 20 years. And the other thing that we're seeing right now, which I don't think is going to stop, is the labor movement. I think that we are, because that is something that it's not just a progressive thing. It is a centrist thing. It is a right-wing thing. You see support for this across the political spectrum. And so if you have organized union leaders, and if you look at what Sean Fain did with he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. In an economy that has become so complex, you can absolutely shut it down with very little effort and coordination. And that's exactly what he did with the auto work. Like, he just said, okay, we're gonna have 100 people strike over here on this day. We're gonna have 20 people strike over here on this day. We are not really exposing ourselves, but it's causing millions of losses because of the supply chain is so complex. If you have
stand-up strikes,
what I forget.
It was
strike, right?
Strike, like what they used to be. It was like stand-up strikes.
Yeah, I forget exactly what he called them. But yeah, it's exactly what it is. So if you have a couple major unions that grow power and organize, that would give institutional power at the same time that a lot of progressive people are getting financial power, and we have a demographic shift which causes the entire electoral landscape to shift. That is when the iron is going to be hot to strike, and when we can accomplish massive policy change. I think, like Medicare for all, like legal. What was that, Brie?
I said, do we have 20 years though? That's the question.
Well, I think we have
2028 strike planned, and I know that there's other topics to talk about, so we don't need to get into it. But the timing of that, electoral wise, is interesting.
That's going to be the shot across the bow, I think, James. And I'm optimistic, and maybe I'm naive, but I do think that like the tides, they are a change.
I think Sean Fain is going to be a pretty important figure for the United States, policy in the next coming years, because he did a great job. And like he had a plan that made sense. It wasn't just wildcat shit all over the place. He actually had a structure in place. And I know this goes completely counter against what we started this conversation with, but another thing that would be great, I hate to say it, I really hate to say it, is a charismatic person to get behind. I mean, we talk about it so much that this is how it is.
I knew you were about to hit it.
It's true, though. It's true. It's so shitty. And like You know, it's like we joke about how elections, this is something I say all the time, elections are popularity contests. Exactly what they are. I mean, people will vote for people who they like, people who have good vibes. Like, how often, what happens to you guys, me and John have talked all the time. I'm sure Bree and James, you guys run across this where you're talking to someone who's like a moderate or a conservative. They're like, yeah, you know, actually what you say makes a lot of sense. And like, they like you or they would vote for you, but, you know, leftist policies they're not big fans. I was like, okay, that doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. Why would you support someone like me when I would be against? But people aren't as bright as, or they don't think as critically as, you know, we would perhaps like them to. But it's an unfortunate reality of the human nature. But it would be great if there was someone who could champion these causes that people just vibed with.
I wish Jon Stewart would run.
We brought that many times. We brought that up many times. Jon Stewart would be. I mean, look, he's not nearly left as we are, but he'd be a great vehicle to get something through because he would win.
For some bare minimum stuff, yes, he would.
Yeah, he would do the bare minimum. Yeah, if that's Project 2028 right there. The ticket is John. Well, Sean Fain organizes the strikes in 2028, and Jon Stewart runs for president, and that's our Project 2025. James, we answered the question. Welcome to the left wing. Thank you for being here.
I love it.
That's a segment.
Exactly. Yeah. This always happens. We always get like a fifth or sixth segment out of, you know, random questions or comments and shit.
Before we move on to the next topic, though, now would be an excellent time to do the plug.
Cool.
So, as we said earlier, I'm just going to start it off, and then I'll throw to Bree, and then Bree, you throw it to James, and just say, this is where you can find me, whatever you want to say, 30-second spiel, and then throw, and then TJ will finish it off.
Sounds good.
All right.
Are you going?
Yes. Had to take a millennial pause there. All right, guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. And this is a special one because this week is when we unveiled Project 2028. So if you're into that, make sure you leave a comment, like this, subscribe, because I think I'm going to have to talk with James after this and organize this. But before we do that, let's definitely introduce you guys to our amazing guests this week. Bree, I'll let you go first. Tell our audience where they can find you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, John and TJ. I appreciate it. You can find me on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm trying to start a YouTube channel, so I'll get there eventually, but I'm mostly on TikTok right now. My username is @thesavagetruth, and yeah, come follow me.
James, where can everyone find you?
Hey, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. You guys can find me on TikTok, Instagram, or the old www. That'll be Comrade Workwear, pretty much anywhere.
I like it. Thanks a lot, folks. Well, my name's TJ. You can find me in St. Louis, where the gunplay ring all day. Some got jobs and some sell yay. Others just smoke and fuck all day. So appreciate you watching, guys. Tune in next time. All right, let's go.
I've never heard that before. What was that?
It's a Nelly song.
Oh, I thought that was a thing you did every time. I was
like, no. Oh my god.
I always thought the same thing. I'm like, is that what he does? Okay.
This guy. No.
I can't hide my facial expressions. I was like,
shit is corny as fuck.
Like, okay.
That's funny.
we just make these up extemporaneously every single time.
Yeah. Just roll with it. They aren't all home runs, folks. Okay,
no.
They aren't.
It's fine. You tried.
James, I wanted to ask: were you an influencer and then you got into the t-shirts and stuff, or did you do the t-shirts and stuff and that made you an influencer?
Contemporaneous.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, and there's a bar. Is anyone here in Brooklyn?
No, I'm in Philly.
I've
been to Brooklyn.
Got it. Oh, yeah. So in Crown Heights, there's a bar that I really like, and I designed a tee for them because they have like really cool merch. And I was like, I'm gonna design a fucking sick tee for this guy. I'm gonna send it to the owner because I knew the owner, and I did. And he's like, oh yeah, no thanks. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm just gonna make one for myself then. And he goes, don't do that. I was like, okay. He's like, we don't want people getting in the habit of making their own merch. I was like, I've bought everything you've ever made. So then my girlfriend was like, I think you should do this. And so I made a couple random teas, and people like kind of fucked with them. And then I realized that it could just be like an outlet for, because I went to school for design and originally for fashion before I became radicalized. And so like October 2022, that's when I started making content, but it was all centered around building an audience with the t-shirt thing. But it's only been in the past few months that I've actually felt comfortable like marketing the merchandise component, because it always felt like really inauthentic and kind of like what's the word they talk about, people that are
Imposter syndrome.
Poser.
Where you're like
A
making
sellout?
a grift. Like I
Yeah,
didn't want
grifter,
to come
yeah.
off as a
Grift.
grifter.
There you go. No, I love hearing how people get to doing this, because it's an insane thing that we do. It is you have to be a little weird to do this. So I always love hearing how people got here. Bree, how about you?
For me, after Roe was overturned, being in Indiana in a red state and
Oh, shit.
knowing that they were immediately going to make an anti-abortion law, I just decided I can't just sit by and do nothing. I have so much to say, and I feel like, other people are talking, so why not me? So that was how I started. Did pretty good. So I started in like July of 2022. Did pretty good, gained a pretty good following, but then I had a whole stalker issue where someone was like stalking me and threatening my life and took my account down, and I've pretty much never been able to recover since then. So yeah, kind of trying. That's why I went from Savage Leftist to the Savage Truth. I'm trying to kind of do like a little bit of a rebrand and trying to expand past TikTok, since TikTok likes to suppress voices.
Yeah, that's
But I enjoy it.
I always say that, like, I'm crazy for doing this, but I feel like women are extra crazy because it doesn't matter how large the creator is, like every single female creator that I've talked to, like they've had some terrible issue with some, and like I have my fucking dickhead haters that like, but it never gets like dangerous for me, and it's like each one of them is like, oh yeah, no, we had a stalk, we had multiple stalkers, we had whatever, and so yeah.
Also,
funny
just
enough, my stalker was a woman.
I was gonna say,
wow.
yeah. So Brie, I forgot you're in Indiana. That's true. I forgot we're both in Indiana. Like,
yeah.
We don't live that far from each other. Like,
I know.
But I forgot that you were in Indiana. But also, I forgot about Brie's situation. She had like I don't know how much you want to talk about on the show, Brie, but okay, but she had a wild stalker. Like the stalker was like on Dr. Phil or some shit. I mean, it was insane. Like, I remember that.
Wait, who was
Sassy
it? Brie?
Shannon. Oh my gosh, if she somehow heard that I said her name on this, she would come back to try to murder me. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, she's like the boogeyman.
DM me. Yeah. Because I had like I've never blocked anyone until this person, and like it was oddly a woman that, like, it's usually men who are like
Sassy Shannon.
It'd be hilarious with the same person.
No, it was. No, I was wondering. I was like, because I know Kiki has also had problems with this woman. So, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have had problems with Sassy Shannon. So, it is essentially, I can try to give like not too long of a version, because this went on for a year and a half. I was
man,
she could come back at any moment. That's how I see it. Like, I just avoid on TikTok. Let's put it this way. She has created somewhere between 25 to 50 accounts to harass me that I've had to block. Yeah.
Wow.
Ones
Jesus
where I've been
Christ.
able to figure out it's her because her son and I became friends throughout all this. And he would like tell me all of her,
about my mom.
her troll accounts. Yeah. Oh, that's a whole other thing too.
Can you imagine like knowing your mother is so fucking crazy?
Right?
Yeah. And he's gay and he's a liberal, and she is like hardcore MAGA.
Christ.
Funny enough though, so after dealing with her for like 6 or 7 months, she went away for a little while, and then she pops back in and she started doing the thing and pulling my account down and going crazy. And coincidentally, I go to her videos and she's like, I'm going to be on Dr. Phil on Monday, blah, blah, blah. She's like talking it up like it's a good thing. Like, I don't know if it's a good thing that you're on Dr. Phil, but okay.
Not a resume enhancer, that is not. If you want
to watch her episode, it aired on either March 5th or March 6th of last year, 2023. It's a good one. She was on Dr. Phil for online bullying. TikTok bullying. So coincidentally, here she is bragging about going on Dr. Phil, and I'm like, that's what she's doing to me. This is literally it. So I recorded the entire episode of Dr. Phil, and I broke it down clip by clip and like posted it and talked about how I was experiencing similar things with her. That really angered her because that went viral. And she's like, everybody on the internet hates me now. It's like, well, why did you go on the
Good.
Dr. Phil?
Yeah. Was she set up? Because I remember that she seemed like she
Her
was
son.
excited for it. She didn't know that she was going to be ambushed. Like, lady, you are insane. So that was fun
Yeah,
to see.
her
But
son, who I'm now friends with. Yeah.
That's funny.
I've never said this before. I want to watch this episode of
This Dr. Phil episode.
Please do. Please do. Please do.
Two first in one day. I want to watch Dr. Phil, and I agree with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Perfect. Two great sound bits.
All right, so let's TJ. I say we go to Ronna McDaniel here, and then we can hit the boat if we have time.
Okay.
Just because we have that's a third segment. We already have it.
All right, gotcha.
So I'm cool with making the boat thing. Maybe we just throw to it because I don't know there's too much to say about the boat.
There isn't.
But
It's really just
a lot of
making fun of the
conspiracies.
Republican reactions more than anything.
Yeah,
That's what I kind of had. Yeah.
No,
so yeah.
there was one thing in that I was irked
Okay,
about,
we'll
but
do
get to
Ronna,
that.
and then we'll end
get
with
to
the
that.
boat. Does anyone have a hard out at 8:00 today?
I'm good.
Okay, so we can go a little bit over if we want.
Oh,
All right, TJ, did you want to introduce?
yeah, I'll go ahead and start this one here. We're all Eastern time. That's good. I just realized that. All right. Yeah, so wanted to talk about the Republican National Committee and what's going on with them. The entire Republican Party is in disarray. It's more than just the Republican National Committee, but they kind of dovetail into what I want to talk about here. Is that last week, I believe it was last Sunday, Ronna McDaniel was on MSNBC being interviewed by NBC hosts. And the NBC host kind of revolted against it after the interview was done, actually talking to the audience, like breaking the fourth wall and saying, listen, we apologize for what our bosses are making us do. We don't think it's right that they hired Ronna McDaniel, the ex-chair of the Republican. By the way, folks, her name is Ronna Romney McDaniel. This is my favorite part about Ronna McDaniel is that she is Mitt Romney's niece, and she actually dropped Romney from her name, which has always been part of her professional name until Donald Trump became the nominee, and he didn't like Mitt Romney. So she gave her own family to supplicate Donald Trump and got fired anyways. It's a win for everybody involved. And so she was hired by NBC and fired shortly afterward because, the people that worked there said, this is a travesty. This woman has been pushing election conspiracy. How do we know she's telling the truth about anything she reports? And I wanted to talk about, first off, why McDaniel was fired. And she was fired because Trump didn't like her. Like, there was a fight between her and Charlie Kirk, that paragon of excellence in American politics. And she criticized Charlie Kirk for being too racist, which is hilarious to come from a Republican. But she did do a poor job managing the Republican Party. The Republican Party, there was a demographic that redstate.com of all places showed with the expenditures for the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee. And the Republicans had spent like 3 to 5 times as much on limousines and on floral arrangements and just like on absolute nonsense. And the Democrats had spent, twice as much as the Republicans when it came to actually funding their candidates across the country. And this has turned out into a big problem for the RNC that as of right now, there are several Republican states that are nearing bankruptcy. Michigan is down to about $90,000 they have for the entire Republican Party in the state. Arizona is down to $14,000, and Arizona is down to $14,000, and Michigan is actually down to $53. I'm sorry, they went from that to 53. It's like 5300. They don't have any money at all.
I have more money than the Michigan.
You have more money than the Michigan.
That's a fucking W, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is TJ,
Winning.
is Michigan an important state?
Michigan's a fairly important state. Michigan, and it's once again, this is an incompetence off. Like who can actually be worse? The Democrats are trying their best to lose Michigan. Well, the Republicans are doing them one better by having no money to put into their campaigns. The RNC across the nation has $9 million, and the Democratic National Committee has about $20 million. And these numbers are bad, but they're going to get worse for the RNC because I don't know if you guys have heard, but Ronna McDaniel is fired and replaced by Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, who has made it. It was great because she first said that her primary goal was to use every penny donated to the party for Trump's campaign. She had to come back a week later and say, well, I didn't actually mean that. We're not actually giving all the money to Donald Trump's campaign, but they're doing something almost as good. Whenever you donate to the Republican National Committee, the Trump campaign gets the first bite. Like, no matter what you were donating for, Trump gets the first bite. And this came out because there was a fundraiser that Trump held, and we saw how the breakdown was going to go. And the fine print for the donation said that the first $6,600 of every donation from any individual or agency will go straight to Donald Trump. Like, the first $6,000 go to him. The next $5,000 goes to the Save America Political Action Committee, which is the political action committee that funds Donald Trump's legal fees. And then the next $400,000 after that will go to everybody else in the entire country. Like, Trump gets the first bite of the apple every single time. So it's not looking good. And Trump is going to suck the RNC dry. He is. He's going to drain them for everything he can. And you love to see it. And that even if by some miracle, I don't think Trump can win, but by some miracle Trump does win, he is going to crush all of the other Republicans along the way. And I'm glad to see it. I don't know. Like, James, I'll throw it to you. What you think? Do you think Trump's making the right decision here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darn it.
For Trump, yeah, he's making that's the right call for Trump, man. When have you seen Trump make a call that wasn't good for him?
Yeah, say what you will about Trump, but he does. He's pretty consistent about.
He takes care of Trump. He takes care of Trump.
Trump is number one, right?
It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't know all this other stuff about the RNC and the dire state that they're in. I guess I am a little curious. You're like, I don't think. Okay, actually, sorry, random thought. You guys remember Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign finance? He was like, let's do an MLM.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh wow. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was beautiful, incredible campaign innovation. Maybe the RNC needs to start doing something creative like that.
I'm actually shocked that like isn't a thing already. like that was, as much as that's like a shitty idea. It seems like
let me get my down funnel Republicans.
Yeah, but it kind of is exactly what Trump has set up here. Is kind of an MLM. Like it is all of the money being filtered to him at the top, and it is genuinely shocking to me that like. No one. I know that we're always like, how do people not see this with Trump? But like, how do the people in power not realize that this is very bad for the party? Like the people who have the power must be able to stand up within the RNC. Like, how is the RNC so much weaker than the DNC? How is that possible? Like, the DNC rules with an iron fist, and the RNC apparently you can just install a puppet and just say, like, it's insane.
All right, so I don't jump in, Bree, before I say, because this is one of the most fascinating topics to me, where you talk about like why. Because listen, the RNC is a lot less disciplined than the DNC. It's wild to think about, but it's self-evident in what we've seen, and it's because in a weird way, it's kind of what we talked about earlier with like the super delegates and the non-democratic structure of the DNC, is that the Republicans actually take their base seriously because they're afraid of them. And so what John Lee said, like, don't the grownups realize it's bad? Yeah, they do. Like the intelligentsia, the media, Republican politicians outside of, 8 or 10 like crazier than normally crazy Republicans who worship Trump. They all hate Donald Trump. They have since 2015, and they know the damage does the party. The only problem is the fucking rubes that vote for them in the primaries love Trump. They love everything he stands for. So it doesn't matter if, Mitch McConnell or, Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney don't like Trump. Cletus and Jesse that are voting in the primaries are going to vote for Trump overwhelmingly every time. And another thing I remember watching a few years ago, there was a graph showing the average age for a Republican congressman and a Democrat congressman. The Republican had a lower average age. Like, they were actually younger than the Democrats, because Democrats have this. I mean, we've seen it plenty of times with, Ruth Bader Ginsburg or what was her name in California? Dianne Feinstein. How we have this deference to age and experience and everything. It's like, oh, well, this person's been around 40 years. They must know what's going on.
What if their skin is literally melting off of their face?
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's just show. That's just the battle scars. Say what, Bree?
I said that's when it's time to say goodbye. Like
no, that's when it's time to bolt yourself to your seat and never leave or anything.
It's time to give them a committee chair.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
TJ, there was something you had just said that reminded me of one of the articles about Ronald McDonald here, which was and I think it's kind of similar to Candace Owens. I think it's emblematic of the same like situation, which is on the MSNBC side. They're like, have to have like this air of objectivity, of non-bias, things like that. And so it's not necessarily the worst thing for them to have like a conservative voice within the MSNBC, but like the point is also to have a voice that's going to speak to an audience for them. Because even if they want to be like pretend news or journalism or whatever, like they still also have to like find their market. And that market doesn't want to hear the intelligentsia side of the conservative right or the Republicans. They want to hear the demagoguery. They want to hear the outlandish bullshit. And I guess that's, I mean, like Candace Owens is like some like far off kind of crazy example of like trying to maintain some like discursive line and not being able to hold that while still trying to like pander to the political population.
I think the difference between the RNC and the DNC can also be boiled down to the liberal love for institutions and the conservative hatred of some institutions. Like in general, conservatives, they at least like the aesthetic of rebellion, of that's why they're always like, oh, I can't believe Rage Against the Machine went woke. They never listen to the lyrics, but they like the aesthetic. But that does appeal to the MAGA red-blooded conservative nature, whereas the epitome of like a DNC person is I don't know, the dean of a university that has to have everything bureaucratic, has to have everything go through the processes, whether or not it makes sense or not. And so that also is what has played out, kind of what you're saying in the media sphere with what Rana was bringing to MSNBC. Rana had the intelligentsia, the institutional ties within Comcast, MSNBC, everything that got her the job. But the funny thing that happened is that the inmates finally started running the asylum at NBC, and you've had this growing wellspring of the liberal journalists, I will say, gaining more power. Like it used to be that they just did whatever the hell their bosses told them, but now with social media, they have their own brand power and influence and can speak out against these things. And when you combine the love for institutions from the liberals at NBC and the talking heads, the number one thing they absolutely hate is January 6th. Like if you talk to hard, staunch liberals who do know what's going on, they hate January 6th more than, I swear to God, anything in the world. Like if you gave them the choice between making January 6th not have happened and having universal health care, well, gosh darn it, they're going to make January 6th not have happened. Like that is how much they hate that. And so hiring Rana was just like, well, screw you. We're going to speak out. And it speaks to the divide across all levels of this, between the split between the elites and the normals, kind of on both sides of the aisle. And it's interesting how it has played out in both ways. Bree, what were this is funny because like when I was researching this, I was way more focused on the MSNBC angle, and TJ, I think you were more focused on the RNC angle. We kind of just like gave this to you guys. So Bree, when we told you we're talking about Ronna McDaniels, what was your like first thought when you were looking into this topic?
Yeah, so it's funny because before I even got the topics, a couple days ago, or yesterday, I guess I should say, yesterday morning, I was watching something on YouTube, just a conversation between two MSNBC hosts, and I saw them say how awful it was that they hired her. They just blatantly said it, and I thought to myself, like, damn, they're going there, and then you kept seeing it go, over and over and over with everybody, even Rachel Maddow. So I found that very interesting. So actually, when I started doing the research here, I kind of went more the RNC way, just
Mhm.
because I had already seen those videos. I do think that, what you were talking about with the way things are kind of shifting in the news is very interesting. That they are kind of ignoring the editors and the people that are in charge
Mhm.
right now, and they spoke out and they got what they wanted, which I found very
And
interesting.
they got what they wanted in just a
That's
haymaker, single shot blow. It was a domination. There was no
yeah.
conflict here. They just won instantly.
Oh well, and
That's
apparently,
what I was impressed most
yeah.
by.
Well, apparently she's gonna sue them. Did you hear that? That she's gonna
Yeah.
sue them?
He's looking into legal
No, I
recourse.
didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call her the eye hire if she sues them.
I had a lot of the same stats that TJ had about the RNC, but one of the other ones that he didn't mention was that Donald Trump's lawyers have already made at least $76 million in the last 2 years. That's a lot of money. That is where
From
that
the
money.
76?
No, not from the RNC, just in general.
Oh.
So if you think about his legal fees now moving forward, that money's going to
Damn.
him. And that is really, really going to bankrupt them. I mean, what'd you say, $53 in Michigan?
53. I can't look at it. $53.
That's insane. That's totally insane. I read the order that it goes in, and you kind of touched on it. It goes to Trump 47 committee, which is his campaign funds. They can only accept a certain amount. Then it goes to the Save America PAC, which is, I guess it's a leadership PAC. So it's barred from spending directly on his campaign. But 89% of the money that went to the Save America PAC went towards his legal expenses, and 80 in 2023. And so far they've spent 8.5 million this year alone.
That's
That-
crazy.
It's
Wow.
not even April yet.
Say what?
I said it's not even April yet.
I know. This is just, and this is what, so what I mentioned earlier about how don't they realize how bad this is for them? What's funny to me is that I haven't tested this, but I encourage everyone to try. I am as soon as I can. Is to talk to a Trump supporter and tell them, hey, do you know that the first $10,000 of every donation? So if the donation is under 10K, it's pretty much all going to Donald Trump, just to pay his legal fees and fund his campaign, and not to any of the other Republicans. I don't think they have a problem with it. I don't. I think your average Republican is like, yeah, it's actually really important to make sure that Donald Trump can pay all of his legal fees. Like that's way more important to them than any random ass Republican senator, congressman,
They
governor.
donate directly to him.
Well, yeah, the
Yeah.
diehard ones, like,
Right?
they see that as like the good fight. It's
Mhm.
it's this like beast
Right.
legal system that's bullshit, that's attacking the good name of Donald Trump. They're happy to do it.
But not attacking poor black people. They deserve it.
No.
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
It's a two-tier justice system. Like on the bottom, it's Donald Trump, and then on the top is black people. Yeah, that's how it works here. Obviously, yeah.
Because
Clearly.
cultural efficiencies, TJ. Come on.
Yeah, right. It's I did want to point out, John, I liked what you said about how the egregious part, because you're right. Like when Bree mentioned that, like watching Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd was the first one. I think Chuck Todd was the first one that brought up that this is not cool what NBC is doing here. And he even told like the reporter that interview was like, I don't think it's cool that our bosses put you in the situation. You could see the nervousness in his eyes and hear it in his voice. Like he was like quivering when he was saying that. Like, his job was very much on the line. Still might be. They may fire him like 6 months from now for getting this ball rolling and shit. But John, there was an excellent point where you said that to liberals, the worst thing that's ever happened in American history is January 6th. I'm not saying January 6th was good, but you're right. And what's her name? Kellyanne Conway tried to make this joke last year, at the end of last year, I think. And it's when she said that, Democrats wake up every day and they go to get an abortion. You guys remember when that happened and everything?
Yes.
But before that, what she said was, I thought if she would have just said this and left it there, I thought it would have been a pretty funny joke. But she kept going with the abortion shit. But the first thing she said was, if you're a liberal Democrat, every day you wake up and you look at the calendar and it's January 6th. I thought that was actually a pretty good joke. I thought that was, because it's true. Because a lot of it like that, they focus on the January 6th stuff. And of course, it's bad and everything. But you're correct, John. They see it as as the worst things happened in American history, and bad as it was, come on, let's. But
it is incredible how they pushed me to like defend January. Like I also agree. It was terrible. Like we should take it seriously, but you're taking it a little too more. You're taking it more seriously than much more serious things.
I think the lesson. I think they're teaching the wrong lesson for January 6th, because when I talk about how January 6th is bad. If you're talking to a conservative, they're either going to say, well, it was Antifa, they'll say that, or they'll say, it didn't really happen, or, hey, they were just protesting and stuff, and that's the people's house. And or they'll say something like, well, I didn't hear you complain about the BLM protest. Like, okay, that's a very simple answer. You see, protesting for good things is good. Protesting for bad things, however, is quite bad. That's the answer right there. So I can think of 1,000 legitimate reasons that the American populace could storm the Capitol that belongs to them, that they own, and say, this is fucked up. We need to change this. I can think like the action in and of itself.
The one going on right now, TJ.
Yeah, right. Like the action in and of itself wasn't the problem. The problem was the fact that the action was held over a hilariously obvious lie that Donald Trump won the election. That's why it was bad. But, the MSNBC folks are posting like, okay, the fact that the people tried to rise up, that's the problem. No, that's not the problem. The problem was that it was over a lie. And that's the lesson I think they're teaching incorrectly about January 6th.
Yeah, because like if you look at it from the MSNBC
totally fucking
angle,
agree. January 6th as an idea, as an action, tight as fuck.
Absolutely.
Tight as fuck.
Yeah.
It was like a couple hundred people. You know what I kept thinking? I'm like, I was at one protest in DC. I was like, there was like 300,000 people. I was like, guys, we could do it.
Yeah, right.
We could do it.
You could do it right now.
It did really. That was the scariest thing about it, was that it was you just have this idea as an American, where if you go onto the lawn of the White House, you're just sniped instantly.
Yeah,
I would never ever
Russell Crowe, whatever. What's his name? Not Russell Crowe.
The movie White House Down
or something.
White House Down.
White House Down. I don't know.
No, it was the 300 guy, not Russell Crowe.
Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler.
Yeah, because that's how I imagine. I'm like, there's literally F-35 jets all over the place, and they're ready to get.
There's trap doors with quicksand in them and spikes and shit, like a Looney Tunes.
If you got a group of 500 organized people, they could probably take the Capitol. Could they keep it? Probably not, but they could take it.
I think they were just caught off guard because they were a bunch of used car dealership owners, middle-aged white people. Like if there had been 500 black people outside the Capitol, like there would be dudes in Iron Man suits, but
not even riding, just standing outside and
absolutely, yeah. So it's not been having capacity, so they weren't expecting it. They was like, these folks are harmless, and so that's the only reason it worked. But yeah, it's true. Like we are. John and I talk about like my name is power is taken, not given for a reason. Like I've seen history on this shit, and direct action, if you know what I'm saying, does work a lot of times. And January 6th is almost proof of that, because like you said, it's a small number of people, and the country was in shambles for hours. No one knew what the hell was going on. But yeah,
if it was competent, organized it would have worked.
That's right.
Worked. Yeah,
but it's also because Trump didn't do anything. Right?
Yeah,
we had a president that was actually going to react to it. Like, trust me, the military would have been there so fast.
That is a great point, Bree, because I love that Trump's excuse for this is that he offered 10,000 National Guardsmen to Nancy Pelosi, and Nancy Pelosi turned it down. That's not how this works. Nancy Pelosi is not in the chain of command. Like she has no say in where the National Guard goes at all. And second, this is Trump's defense that he said, we need 10,000 troops at the Capitol building. Have you seen the Capitol building? Where are 10,000 people going to go? Like, that's just like a bullshit made up number that he said, because there's not room for 10,000 people to surround the Capitol building. And then when you read into like the transcripts of what happened, Trump never ordered the National Guard there. Like he never said. Mike Pence gave the order for that. I mean, that's how wild this shit was, that Trump never even bothered to send the Guard to defend. So that's a good point. If you had a president that actually did want to defend the Capitol, they very easily could have.
The Virginia State Police were the first ones there.
Wild shit. And
that was because the governor sent them, not because the president asked.
Well, I mean, they were there already. They just weren't.
They saw a commotion.
No. I'm saying they just weren't in uniform, but they were definitely
they were just
well
attending.
represented there.
They were
They're like, oh, sorry, my uniform's in my car. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get that. Let me go get
Let me put away this Gadsden flag, and I'll come right back and like get through this shit.
Let me put this gallows away real quick.
There were gallows there.
There were fucking
There were
were
gallows, man. Like, wow. It's wild that it wasn't worse than it was. It really is wild that it didn't get worse than it actually did. But that is yeah, I forgot about the gallows. That's fine.
There's a documentary. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's called 4 Hours at the Capitol. Go watch it.
Was that episodic? Like, I remember that being on like Hulu or something. I thought I saw something. Okay, yeah, I did see it then. Yeah,
they probably made that so quick. It was like January.
I know, right?
9th. It was January 9th, and they're
January
like,
9th.
"It's a fucking documentary, guys."
Watch it right now.
You know what's so funny is like all these liberals. Obviously, that was like Armageddon. You know, it's the worst thing ever. I remember also cishet white man, whatever. I was in California at the time. I remember it was on the news, and my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "Oh, look at this," and I was like, "Oh yeah." I turned it off. I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, whatever.
I hate to be a one-upper, but I got one better. I was in the army I was still in the army at the time. I didn't get out until like, I don't know, the next year, I think. And I sent a group text to some guys in my unit, and you know, that you have to be in. Or no, someone sent a group text to our unit group text and said, "Hey, there's a bunch of like Trump supporters storming the Capitol." And like 2 or 3 guys were like, "That's cool as hell. That's awesome as fuck." I'm like, what? I just were looking at it like, oh, Jesus. Like, I knew you guys were insane right wingers, but yeah, come on. Like, right out in public, you're saying that shit. So yeah, that was, I had dudes that were all for it. It's pretty wild shit.
Christ.
All right.
There's people that still wish it happened.
Say what?
There's people that still talk about how, you know, they should have done it better. And
Yeah, TJ, you missed the one group of the people who just say, "Yeah, no, that was a good thing, and we should do it again." Like,
So
that's a significant contingent of the Republican
This is a
Party.
weird.
It is.
Yeah. So you know what? Those people are the most consistent and honest people about January 6th. I don't actually have a beef with them. Like, I really don't. The ones that bother me are the ones who say that, "Oh, this is awful. This was bad. You know, this is." It's like, wait a minute. Okay, let me get this straight. So you think what happened on January 6th was bad, right? It's like, yeah. Do you think the election was stolen? Well, of course it was. Like, okay, wait a minute. If you think the election was actually stolen, that, you know, there were millions of fraudulent ballots that were sent to support Joe Biden, that would be the greatest like act of
Patriotism.
it would be the greatest act of treason and an upending of democracy in the history of the United States. Like, I mean, like you destroyed like the institution that led to who's going to lead the nation for the next 4 years. If that actually happened, then January 6th is totally justified. Like, if you really think that the election was stolen and that there was plenty of proof of it and people were ignoring it, the patriotic thing to do would be to go overthrow the Capitol. So you can't hold both views simultaneously. And that's what I like to get with Republicans all the time, is that you can't say that, yeah, the election was stolen, but people trying to, you know, ameliorate this problem was bad, because that is logically inconsistent. I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I agree 100%, DJ. Like,
Yeah.
that's also what I say about. I say the same thing about abortion. I'm like, if you are like thinking that a fetus is a living, breathing human baby, yeah, no, I like. It's not very consistent to be like, oh yeah, but a woman has a right to choose. Like, no,
Yeah.
that wouldn't make any sense. Like that argument doesn't make sense to me, because anyone who thinks that it's murder, like women don't have the right to choose murder. So at least
Have you guys
you're
seen
gonna convince
those
them, you
ads
gotta,
on
like,
TikTok and Instagram of like the women throwing the little blue things, which I guess have like saved embryos or something? They're like, taking my kid to swim, and they like throw it in the pool.
No, I haven't seen that. No.
No, because I guess there's
Oh,
like some new law that was passed in like, I don't know, the
Alabama.
That's funny.
Indianas or the Alabamas or the Kentuckys, where they were like, that's a life, like that
Mhm.
that test tube.
I like
is
how
a
the
life.
Republicans got bit by their own snake with that, with the well, every embryo is a life, and then IVF clinics just started shutting down. It's like, oh, that's right, because this doesn't make any sense, and IVF doesn't work if you know, you have to treat every embryo like a human being. It's like, whew, that
It's
was pretty
also
funny.
a $1 billion industry. It's a $1 billion industry. So they spoke out against it, but then all of a sudden they like had to backpedal. Like, oh wait, our big donors and stuff, they don't want us to talk about IVF. They kind of
So,
backpedal.
well, their solution was, as duplicitous as ever. They're still going to have the rules in place that, a fetus or an embryo is a human being for the cases of abortion, but not for IVF. Like that's their
Right.
solution right there. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all, but it's
that never mattered before. Why is it
never
gonna
mattered
stop them
before.
now?
Yeah, never mattered before. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, let's wrap with this boat.
Wrap with the
And
boat.
chat about it. So
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat. All right, so guys, I don't unless you've been living under a rock this week, you're probably aware that a boat crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, and it is a sad story because people did die, but it's also one of those stories where you can kind of look at it from any lens, and whatever conspiracy theory you happen to believe in, you can make it fit. And which has made it just a political firestorm of absolutely terrible takes from the worst people you know. And it has been a very interesting, like, I feel like that has been more of the interesting story here, the reaction to it, than the actual thing happening. Because I don't know if you guys have come across anything else. From everything I've read, this seems like kind of an accident. Like it seems like bad things happen, bad things sometimes happen, and very unfortunately, bad things happened at the same time the boat was in a
It wasn't
collision
just like the
course.
power went out on the boat for a second. They didn't have control, and then it went into the bridge.
Exactly.
The power was out. Yeah.
Which, there probably is some like actual people responsible for that happening. Like maybe it was a freak accident of technology that could have been avoided. Usually these things are because of someone cutting a corner somewhere. But Bree, that you seem to have
the brand of that. Yeah, the brand of that boat, the Dolly cargo boat. Apparently, there was talks previously that there could be some sort of manufacturing issue, and it's been talked about elsewhere. And then this happens. So now I think they're going to do a bigger investigation into that. Similar to Boeing, right?
Yeah, like I think Boeing's a great example. Like, yeah, that's clearly obvious, just corporate fuckery. But I have been I haven't like gone into it because I haven't seen because I see so many people jumping the gun. Like I said, like to say the right is all about DEI and immigrants like causing this. I actually made a TikTok yesterday about like one of the when Fox News host was talking to I think it was Carville, and she was just like, yeah, so the White House has said this about the bridge and all of these things happening, but you've been talking about how immigrants might have caused this. And it's like, how is this related? And he's like, how are you going to stop the immigration at prices at the border? I'm like, these two things aren't related. These two things aren't related at all. You can't even like make a stone's throw to
That's where you're wrong, John.
James, tell us how immigrants are at fault for the what was your take, James, when you were reading about this story? Either during the time or in preparation.
I don't know. Like, I just went in and there was like an AP News article or something, and the entire article was just about the insurance circle jerk, like the insurer's circle jerk around like who's at fault and who's not at fault. And I was like, 6 people died. They did one line at the end, but then it followed, and then there's like, but this is gonna cost a lot of money. And I was just like, there's so many components to this that are like, I obviously understanding what happened, which I'm with you, John. I think it was just simple manufacturing like error, and I think that there should be an investigation into the same cost-cutting measures that probably stopped safety protocols from happening. But like and then there was like other things about like how much money it's going to cost like the local businesses like the Domino Sugar Factory, and how all the insurers are trying to like blame it on Singapore. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about all the insurance companies. Like, I'm sorry, that's like not what I want to read about as regards this thing. Like I want to know. And then the other part that was bugging me was that Biden came out saying that he was going to, or that he planned to like put a bunch of money into fixing this, which multiple outlets said are not going to happen. And that it's effectively just like campaign rhetoric that he's putting out there right now. Yeah, like that there's like ways, there's channels in which that he can divert some of the funds from like one of his like infrastructure bills or something.
That would be the infrastructure bill.
But that they were like, it's unlikely that money's going to get there. They said that
weird.
They were like, it's likely this bridge is not going to be rebuilt.
Oh,
which
Really?
is
There's
one. You know, it's like
35,000 cars that drive over it every day.
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
yikes.
And then I was like, what does this mean for? I just was thinking about it from like, you know, like as a worker person. I'm like, what does this mean for workers?
yeah.
Imagine all the people that have to get to and fro that are now like probably having to tack on like an hour or two extra into their commutes, uncompensated, more money for gas, expected to leave earlier, get home later. Like there was
Traffic.
so many things that I was like actually hoping that someone was going to say something. I was expecting, because no one cares about that. But the fact that I read a whole article that was like a high schooler's essay length, that was just about insurance companies pointing the finger at each other. And I was like, this is bullshit. I actually don't care.
I
So-
love your dog right now.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say
know,
it's
dogs are
hard to
adorable.
take anything
Dogs
he's saying
adorable.
seriously because I'm just staring at the dog.
dog's adorable. Yeah.
Cute. Oh.
So if we're lucky, Elon Musk can build a tunnel underneath the water, and that
Oh
way
my
they can.
God.
There we go.
Why didn't I think of that, TJ? We
Or-
said one Tesla at a time. in the
One
tunnel.
Tesla at a time.
Yeah.
Single car.
Exactly. Or the Teslas can maybe he can get them to fly or something, you know?
Exactly.
Got all that money. Just
And,
fly them right over.
So
I was gonna
Oh, go-
say that I have a list of like 9 different conspiracy theories on this that I came
Yes.
up
oh,
give
let's
them to
go.
me.
Let's fucking
with. Want me to
go.
list them out real quick? All right.
Yeah.
All right. The ship is from Singapore, and since TikTok's CEO is also from Singapore, then it must be an intentional attack to punish
Yeah.
America for considering banning TikTok.
No,
Mm.
that
One.
makes sense.
Ooh,
That-
I'm in.
that
I'm
one-
in.
that-
That's it.
Bree, you
Everyone
mean you
knows
have
if
one
you-
conspiracy theory? Because that's obviously it right there. That's
Sold,
clearly what
If you
didn't
want
have
to
to
attack
come
America,
out swinging.
It gets worse. It gets worse. DEI/diversity hire and corporate woke culture led to the collision. Not
that's what I was
joking.
going to talk about.
Yeah,
I've heard that one a lot.
from this
Yeah.
from this company that isn't in America.
Well, yeah, they said this about the boat, and they said it about Boeing, that they so they have these diversity hires, and that's the reason the corporations are cutting corners for safety regulations, because they never did that before. You know, this is definitely because they hired a Hispanic female to be the chief operations officer, so she was just started slashing, regulations left and right. That's a good one, Bree. We're
I'd say,
tracking.
Bree,
Sold, right?
I want to
Sold
say one more thing on that one is that I've said
Yeah.
this for a long time that the whole it's so clear and obvious now that the entire DEI like hullabaloo is to cover for corporate like cost.
Yeah.
cutting.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It is so it happened like a year ago where it started getting big, and it specifically started getting big about airlines. And now we're finding out all of these things about Boeing, and it's like, oh, it was so clear and obvious they knew this was going to happen and tried to create a cover story. Like it has
Yep.
never been more. It's more obvious than Epstein not killing himself. Like
I even heard,
Exactly.
I think it was Maria Bartiromo you're talking about, who did that interview asking like, hey, can you talk about the immigrants?
I
Because
think that's her. Yeah,
I think it was
yeah.
that same interview where the same guy tried to blame DEI for the New Palestine in Indiana train crash. It was like,
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with this too. But sorry, Bree, go ahead. What was it?
That's ridiculous. Okay, the next one. Since you talked
Savage.
about the train, I'm gonna go straight into this one because it's about Pete Buttigieg. So they said it's his fault because he destroyed our infrastructure. So it's
course,
his
of
fault
course.
that this boat crashed.
Oh, I'll get in on that one too.
Damn you,
yeah.
Pete.
I hadn't had to read Pete Buttigieg's name until this whole fiasco.
Can you think of another like transportation secretary who's had a worse time than Pete Buttigieg? Like
No.
I've never seen so many infrastructure and transportation issues. Like the guy signed up at the wrong time. He really did.
Yeah, poor guy. Poor guy. All right, it gets worse. So someone said that it's a terrorist attack orchestrated by Obama.
Oh, wait.
Does that make sense?
But like, what? How do you
has
know
the means.
what?
I
even
don't know the
connection
details on
was?
that one. No, I don't know the details. Sorry.
This is another thing. How we always make fun of right wingers for being children and being uneducated, morons that couldn't, find their way to a wet paper bag. But this is a great example of this. Is that their understanding of the word terrorism doesn't make any sense at all. It's kind of like how I think what was it his name Youssef said something about this, about how they keep saying Hamas is a terror organization, and like, okay, can you point me to any videos of Hamas taking credit for actions of terror? Because that's what terror organizations do. Terror organizations, like when ISIS would blow up a building or light someone on fire, the next morning they were out with a video saying, yeah, we did that shit, because they want to terrorize
Well-produced
people.
videos.
Exactly. Yeah, slick. Like
Whether
slick.
they did that shit or not.
Because they want to be known as terrorists. But so this boat accident happened. Obama did it, but he's not saying anything about it because he's a terrorist. Like that's not how terrorism works. It's just it's crazy. Yeah.
I also love the idea that this is a man who had access to the entire U.S. military and for 8 years and never did a terrorist attack. And he's like, you know how I'm gonna get him? I'm gonna ram a boat into a bridge
in Baltimore.
In Baltimore,
Yeah.
At 1 a.m. when there's like no traffic on there.
I'm gonna hit him where it hurts, Baltimore.
I'm so glad we ended up doing this.
This is great.
Next
It's
one,
great. Coming.
There's 3 more. All right. So,
Let's go.
I don't know the details on this one, but apparently some conservatives are saying there was some sort of black swan event that disrupted interstate commerce, which caused them to forcibly. I honestly, I think that's what they. So you know the movie Black Swan.
Yeah.
I think they're saying that it was kind of like the ideology behind that, where something happened and I don't know. Now I'm getting off train here. I'm not going to try to speak to this conspiracy theory.
It's that Mila Kunis.
But this is what I saw on Reddit. Was that someone said it was a black swan event.
Say, is it 2 chicks making out? Is that what they're saying? A black swan event is like what? I have no idea what this is supposed to mean at all.
Okay, so
yeah, I don't know. I'll Google it after I give you the next one. Okay. The bridge was weakened by electric vehicles.
Oh, fuck out of here. That one's not even. They were even trying with that one. They weren't even trying.
EV traffic caused it because that makes so much sense.
What was that?
EV traffic. Yeah, that's what they said.
No sense. A black swan event is something that describes unforeseen happenings in the financial world with cascading consequences, such as the 2000.com crash. What does that even mean? Is related?
What does that do with Black Swan?
I'm just gonna say it's about the Black Swan movie because I like.
Yeah, I know. Right?
We're just gonna go with that.
So can you read that one again? Like, what was it? Was that they're saying it's a black swan? Can you read what you said again?
A black swan event disrupted interstate commerce.
So this is so fun. So I'm just reading off of Wikipedia here, and it says the black swan theory or theory of black swan events is a metaphor that describes an event that comes as a surprise, has a major effect, and is often inappropriately rationalized after the fact with the benefit of hindsight. And it's like that is true. This by that definition, this is a black swan event. And I'm confused as to what they think it means because the black swan event is calling them out for whatever their conspiracy theory is.
Am I crazy? Isn't this just butterfly effect shit? Isn't that all this?
Yeah,
butterfly effect is different.
The black swan part is like I don't know. Like I don't know. The etymology.
No, butterflies are gay. Actually,
butterflies are gay. Because they're not manly like swans.
Yeah, well, because they made out with gay frogs because of the fluoride in the water.
Yeah, that's right.
This is but by that definition, all of these conspiracy theories, like this is that is what this is. I'm just confused to why they use that terminology.
So
they use a lot of weird things.
Yeah,
I will never
they
understand.
do. Yeah, they want to sound cool. They want to sound cool and everything.
Let me give you the best
last one.
Let's go.
Liberals who hate Francis Scott Key wanted to destroy a monument in his name.
Well, I mean,
because liberals were running the boat from Singapore. Because that makes sense.
That it sounds like you take the good with the bad on that one. Francis Scott Key, fuck that guy.
Yeah, but I don't think our solution would be tearing down the bridge and killing immigrants.
Wait, do we hate Francis Scott Key? I have had no beef with Francis Scott Key. Do we have beef? Like, what did he do?
The beef that people have Francis Scott Key is that the Star Spangled Banner that we sing is only the first out of 5 verses, and like in the 4th verse of the song, he shit talks hireling slaves, which were people who were enslaved in the 13 colonies. And the Brits who were fighting the colonists said, hey, listen, you guys run away from your slave plantations. We'll pay you to fight in our army and give you our freedom. And Francis Scott Key really hated that. Like, he really hated the idea.
How dare they?
Yeah, he was just shit talking the entire verse and everything. So that's the beef that liberals have with Francis Scott Key. I do want to say about the bridge, though, about, mentioning like unforeseen circumstances. And this is just like how time works, is that when the bridge was built in 1977, boats were a lot smaller than they were today. And so it was actually built to withstand, a hit from a ship, but, not a ship that was 50 years in the future. They hadn't thought that far ahead. So
that boat is the length of 3 statues of Liberty.
It's huge. Yeah, it's
To
huge.
visualize that is really difficult for me.
And Bree, that is where like the actual, not the conspiracy there, but like that is like something that has been talked about since like the Suez Canal, is that ships have gotten bigger and bigger for the express intent is that they're more profitable. The more
Yes.
square footage there is on the boat, the more profitable it is for the shipping company because it's just physics. But it also causes major issues with overall transportation infrastructure when they get stuck or they hit something, or you have to unload a bunch of it at one time and then you have people sitting around because there isn't another boat coming because you had it all in one boat instead of doing it in an efficient manner. And like that is an actual explanation for one of the problems that caused this. But
Right.
no, it was probably because, you know, we wanted to tear down a monument.
Just because of all the electric vehicles.
Oh, guys,
Those
it
damn
was
electric
TikTok.
It was TikTok. I think it was
TikTok.
TikTok is my
The
favorite.
TikTok
That-
one, the first one, yeah.
People.
Tic-tac-toe, a winner.
By the way, I didn't get like what she was trying to do with the tic-tac-toe thing. I didn't
either.
It didn't make any sense. It didn't. I was like, I don't get even what she was trying to say, but I don't know. She's 85
I don't
years
think
old.
anybody understood.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
think anyone
weird.
got that.
You
That
guys
was
know
weird.
what my Roman Empire is.
What?
yes, I've heard that.
Good morning, Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
That Nancy Pelosi line.
I forgot
at
about
least
that.
once or twice a day in my head.
Really?
Yeah,
I
that's
can't get
weird.
it out. I can't get it out.
That was weird. That was weird.
I
There's
don't
a
think
lot
I've
of
ever
like,
given that one a second thought, to be honest. But
oh, that was
now that you
that was
say
it was just weird
like,
that you did
that's
it.
true. It's weird.
All right, guys, this has been a great episode. If
Before we get
our
too
audience
green out
should
of
know,
control.
this is our last episode of the night. We're wrapping it up. This is the end of the episode. Watch the outro and then subscribe and shit. Whatever I say, do that.
Appreciate it, folks.
Thank you.
Okay. I was like, we gotta wrap this.